Hello, everyone. Counterpoint Research is here in Cupertino, California at the Apple launch event. I'm here, Jeff Fieldhack, and my colleague Neil Shah. Neil, greetings.
Yeah.
What was the key couple takeaways, overall theme of the event?
I think according to me, it was more of Apple's focus on health in it penetrating into multiple devices across the ecosystem, and how the underlying software and hardware integration with respect to AI, ML, powering most of these features, and even at medical grade level. So that was one, and second was more of a design form factor evolution with iPhone Air, and how it's going to set tone for future Apple designs as they enter into broader categories with respect to like foldables and so forth.
Agree.
What about you?
Yeah, overall, there was a little maybe underwhelming on the AI side, but more on the product development side, own silicon, own Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, Threads support chips, eSIM. So it seems to be kind of a progression, as you said, or setting the stage for future iterations that will be able to improve on this, kind of integration.
Absolutely. And I think overall, if you look at in terms of as Tim Cook and team went through the presentation, right? I think most of the applause came in with iPhone Air, and I think AirPods and a couple of other functions with respect to the camera, especially the front camera, right? So otherwise, it was quite muted in the sense where audience maybe almost knew what is going to come, and they were not super excited about everything, right? But in some bits and pieces, I think they were a little bit more excited. But overall, I think we'll have to see how investors take this and whether the stock goes up and down. But overall, I believe like these minor additions to the portfolio, right? Like, or with respect to it having a widest portfolio. The iPhone is having the widest portfolio with like from iPhone 16e to 17 base to Air to almost 17 Pro and Pro Max, right? So that is the widest portfolio they've ever had. And I think with the thinner design, it will drive some of the evolution in terms of mind share in some countries where they were losing, right? For example, China, right? And maybe in US, they're quite stable, but you can talk more about it. But in China, I think this form factor will drive some of the excitement again for consumers. But other than that, I think it was more of a little bit of muted and as expected, what is expected from Apple always, and all those micro innovations within the product categories, which are meaningful, but it does not wow everyone, right? But for the Apple user base who is upgrading from like a 3-year-old iPhone, it's a great upgrade.
Yeah, absolutely. From the US perspective, Apple's set up well. Carriers came out with $1,100 rebates. Anything iPhone 13 and above, any condition. So as far as the carrier markets are specific to US, I think no problem holding serve, holding the base. There'll be a lot of excitement. And to your point of like 16e to Pro Max, it gives retailers something to talk about. Differentiation. People come into the store, they can aim them towards. There's a lot of different things to talk about for sure.
There's interesting study, a press release which our US team did, right? In terms of Gen AI, whether it's moving the needle for smartphone upgrades. Do you see that as a important factor? Because Apple does have a lot of AI capabilities inbuilt, right? For the normal user, it's more about what it can do more with respect to productivity or overall content generation and so forth. So do you think iPhones, this entire broad range is good enough from Apple intelligence perspective to move that needle in prepaid as well?
Yeah, with that coming down into prepaid, so virtually all the market, when you subsidize like the 16e, you're getting into entry in the US. So I think there's this education process that's going on. But some of the items that they did talk about, this natural language translation, your notes, making it simpler across devices, I think that'll start to resonate. It's a story that needs to be told and retold, because getting the base to really buy into it, like I have to upgrade, is still maybe a bit difficult, but the education process is there, and I think for that reason, Apple has helped hold serve again on the AI front, even though, yeah, let's face it, they've kind of been playing catch up to a lot of the Android advances
Right.
in AI.
So if why we're talking about US more is because it's one of the apex market for Apple, and most of the value for Apple is generated in US after that is China and Japan, right?
Yeah.
So my question for you is Apple does not have a foldable yet, right? Is that hurting them in postpaid or not much?
Um, Not much. OS is our religion, but that is where you do get the highest percentage of switching.
Okay.
Is what Samsung's doing on the Fold. They get a lot more switchers on the foldables than they are for like the S series. So it is something I do think that will be a tailwind for Apple when they do come out with a foldable. There'll be plenty of pent up demand for that. And as you said, with this thin design, they're kind of probably working through a lot of the difficulties that they'll face with a foldable.
Right. Yeah. Like iPhone Air could be quite popular in markets like China and Asia, which we talk about. But how do you see like Galaxy S25 Edge doing in US?
Yep. I think it's still early. The answer is I think okay, or maybe even a little above expectations. Um, you know, it's a little hard in the US. You usually, we're $1,000 device, you buy a case on it anyways, which kind of defeats some of the purpose. But I think Apple did a good job on their thin 5.5 millimeters. It is really thin and one hand use. It's not top heavy. So I think they did a really good job on it. And that I think form factor actually will resonate. It takes the place of the Plus, which has always been the distant fourth place of the new devices. And this certainly will, put a lot of juice into that SKU.
Yeah. So, yeah, the net on the iPhone side, I think Air was one of the highlights.
Yeah.
We will deep dive further a little bit in the next video on this one. And also on the wearables part, which were also exciting in terms of announcements. Stay tuned.